Qapla World, it's Birdo Prey 5, and I wanted to thank Dan23 for sending me this link. Although, it's had my blood pressure much higher than usual this morning. So this is from /film.com. Honestly, I don't know that I've ever read anything from /film.com, but here we go. Star Trek Picard creators say every new Trek show will be different. Of course it will. Of course they will. CBS All Access presented a Television Critics Association panel for Star Trek Picard. The long-awaited streaming series features Patrick Stewart as Jean Luc Picard again, and co-stars all his TNG friends, along with 7 of 9 and you, the Borg. Executive producers Alex Kurtzman, Akiva Goldsmith, Heather Caden, and showrunner Michael Chabon, of course they mean former showrunner, sat behind Stewart and his new co-stars during the panel. His co-stars are such big stars we didn't even include their names. Because why? Nobody cares. They're there for Patrick Stewart. They could have picked any group of idiots off the street, and they probably did. Much of the panel focused on how each iteration of Star Trek on CBS All Access will be a unique experience, with Picard as the most demonstrative example. Well, you know what? It's the only example because it's the only new Star Trek series other than Discovery on CBS All Access, so I guess it's a win by default. Star Trek Picard premieres on January 23rd on CBS All Access. Yes. Yes, it does. We are 9 days from STP Day. This isn't syndication anymore. Well, isn't that our loss? Because let's face it, when was Star Trek the greatest? You know. This, in fact, it says it right here. When Star Trek was at its syndicated height in the 90s, I would just argue at its height, not syndicated or not, there was The Next Generation, Voyager, and Deep Space Nine. Okay, well, that's a dumb way to list them, because Deep Space Nine happened between Next Generation and Voyager. And if you're doing it alphabetical, then you start with Deep Space Nine. Whatever. There's too much to complain about already. Each one had its unique aspects, but they all shared a constant aesthetic. Yes, because they were all Star Trek, set in more or less the same time. Kurtzman wanted Picard to be an example of how different concurrent Star Trek series could be. What? Well, they could be different if there are 100 years difference, then yes, I expect Discovery and Picard to look different. However, if you have 2 Star Trek series going on at the same timeline, they better look like they're going on at the same time. Because if they don't, I would just say you failed at producing consistent Trek. But let's go on. What does Kurtzman say? I think the proposition is that every time you watch a Star Trek show, it has to feel and look totally different from every other show. What? I think the proposition is that every time you watch a Star Trek show, it has to feel and look totally very different from every other show. Kurtzman said, what you get from Discovery is not what you're going to get from Picard. Well, thank God for that. And certainly not what you're going to get from Lower Decks. That's the beauty of what we're trying to build. If you're looking at the show and thinking, well, I could just get that on another show, then we failed. Okay, well, Picard, I hope, is very different from Discovery. I have a feeling it won't be, especially after the short track, Children of Mars, and all we saw were Discovery ships. Not a single real Star Trek timeline ship. Only Discovery ships. And Lower Decks is a comedy and a cartoon. So of course it's going to be very different. Some of the differences Kurtzman promises include spending more time on Earth and focusing on Picard's private life. Okay, Picard's private life, you know what? I think to be honest, there's probably something they could do there. They didn't do a hell of a lot of private life with Picard and the Next Generation. We had a couple of episodes, but that was really it. They were few and far between. So focusing on Picard's private life, totally viable. However, the part about spending more time on Earth? No, this is Star Trek. The beginning of every episode, it said, to explore strange new worlds, to seek out new life and new civilization, to boldly go where no man has gone before, not to sit back on Earth. The entire point of Star Trek is to boldly go. That means boldly go into space. Not boldly sit on our ass on the vineyard. Not boldly complain at Federation headquarters to some random admiral. That's not what it means. It means you boldly go. That is the most basic tenet of Star Trek. Boldly going where no one has gone before. And that is not Earth. Earth is where everyone has gone before. Every TV show other than Star Trek and a couple of other sci-fi shows is based on Earth. You just said that if I could get this on any other show, you failed. But then you said, well, we're going to base it on Earth. They're not even consistent from one paragraph to the next. Some of the differences Kurtzman promises include spending more time on Earth. You stupid fuck. The look feels more grounded, Kurtzman said. If you look at the season, you'll kind of see functions and chapters. Kind of? The first chapter is really Earthbound. It's very rare that you see a lot of time spent on the planet Earth in the world of Star Trek. And we did not want to rush that. Well, you don't see a lot of time on Earth by design, you stupid fuck, because it's Star Trek. It's not Earth Trek. And we didn't want to rush it. You only have 10 episodes. If you start putting out 26 episode seasons, like Star Trek Deep Space Nine, then you can sit around on your ass for 4 or 5 episodes on Picard's Vineyard. But you better be rushing to get to space. You only have 10 episodes. We wanted to take time to show the condition of Picard's life and watch him evolve into taking off into the stars. The man is 80 fucking years old. Evolve into taking off the stars. That is Captain Jean Luc Picard, intergalactic space traveler. The man has literally been to the edge of the universe and back in a single TNG episode. He has been to Borg space. He has been to the future. He has been to the past. He has been to the Romulan Empire. He has been to the Klingon homeworld. He has been to Deep Space Nine. I don't know if he's been through the wormhole, but I assume he probably has. He's been to the Ferengi places. He's been to countless alien worlds. The man is one of the most traveled people in the Star Trek universe. He has spent his life among the stars. And you, Alex Kurtzman, think you need to evolve him further to get to the stars? This tells me you don't know the first effing thing about Jean-Luc Picard or Star Trek. A bucket of rocks could have written better Star Trek. We want to show the condition of Picard's life and watch him evolve into taking off into the stars like it's his first fucking time. And we're not in a hurry to do that. You should have been. You should have been in a hurry. It should have been episode 1, scene 1, space, the final frontier. So I think the look and the tone and the feel of the show is different by design. I think it's different by you. It's different by suck. Some aspects will always be consistent in Star Trek shows. Well, thank effing God. The beauty of the world that Gene Roddenberry created, right, Gene Roddenberry, sure he did, created is that it has room for several different approaches and tones. Several, huh? Several different. Like you could list them. However, you'll always know you're watching Star Trek. Well, you know what? that's actually a good thing. But that seems very different than what Alex Kurtzman told us above. And why is it different? Oh, because this is Kaidan speaking now. So Kaidan is about to undo everything Kurtzman just said because she heard Kurtzman screw the pooch. Okay, so she comes out and says, all the shows are connected because they're ultimately Trek. They're all coming from the point of view that there's hope for a better future, quality for a better future, and those same tenets apply across the board. But I think what's been so special about building up the franchise is that we have amazing different voices focused on each one. We have Shaban and Akiva on this show, and we got Mike McCann doing a comedy on Lower Decks, and then we have Hagman Brothers doing a show for Nickelodeon, and all of the shows on one hand, on face value, feel very different, but you should be able to watch any of them and feel like, wow, that's a Star Trek show, told from a specific point of view. Well, you know what? Kudos to Kaidan. If she's correct, I agree. You should be able to say, hey, that's a Star Trek show, whether it's a Lower Decks animation, whether it's a comic, whether it's a children's show on Nickelodeon, or whether it's Picard on CBS All Access. You should be able to look and say that's a Star Trek show. Now, if only Alex Kurtzman had said the same thing a paragraph above, I wouldn't be so angry right now. But no, he had to flap his mouth, and then you, Kaidan, had to come in and try to rescue him. Because clearly Kurtzman, every time he speaks, and unfortunately, I think he's telling the truth. I think they're all going to be different. Because I think that was his goal. Because he's an idiot. All Star Trek shows have to address a timeline now? Now? What have they been doing? Thanks to Kurtzman's own... Oh, Kurtzman's own... It's like the world's worst salad dressing. Kurtzman's own. Thanks to Kurtzman's own 2009 Trek movie, it's Tribble flavored. There are now multiple timelines in Star Trek. We all know. We all know what happened with Star Trek 2009. I'm not going to get into it. But they're saying that they are so-called confirming that Picard, like Discovery, is in the so-called prime timeline, which I call bullshit on, but whatever. If Picard was in the same timeline, they could have given us one single ship in the short track Children of Mars that was in the prime timeline or the original timeline. I think the original timeline and the prime timeline are different timelines. I do. Because when you do things in math, you have X and X prime. I would never have called something prime if there wasn't something original to change it. I think they made up the prime timeline as the first different timeline. And then the Kelvin timeline is a yet other different timeline. But that's just me. I know that's not widely believed. This Star Trek is more for new Trekkers. Trekkers. If every Star Trek show can be different, there could conceivably be the ultimate diehard Trekker show. No, because it would be a Trekkie show. The ultimate diehard Trekker show that's completely impenetrable to anyone who hasn't seen every episode of every series. That's not Picard, though. Although it will be rewarding to Next Generation fans, they want new Trekkers to enjoy it too. You know what? You are nowhere near being able to make a show impenetrable to anyone who hasn't seen every episode of every series. There has not been a Star Trek made that has been anywhere close to impenetrable. Okay? The Next Generation picked up millions of new fans. Deep Space Nine has found its new fans. I will admit they were slow to finding it, but they have found it. Voyager has its own fans. People who came along, they came of age when Voyager was playing. Voyager is their Star Trek. Every Star Trek series, even Enterprise, has picked up fans along the way. They didn't specifically need to be made so that new fans would like it. Okay? If you're saying that this is more for new fans, than for your existing fans, then what are you saying? You're saying that you don't give a shit about your existing fans. That's not how you want to run a franchise. Okay? Could you imagine if they said this is Spider-Man for people who have never seen Spider-Man before? Who the hell would want to see that Spider-Man? There's not a lot of people out there saying, you know, I never got into Spider-Man, but this is the movie they think I'm going to do it because they said it's for people who've never seen Spider-Man before. Those people don't exist. They only exist in your warped brains. The way to get more Star Trek fans is by making good Star Trek that Star Trek fans enjoy. And they will convince their friends and families and loved ones to start watching. That's how you make new Star Trek fans. Many of us have a very deep, long-standing relationship with Star Trek, Goldman said. Our storytelling came from watching Star Trek, the original series, or the original series in syndication or later iterations. So it's really important to us that we are Star Trek fans. No, you're not. I don't believe you. I do not believe you. Not after seeing 2 seasons of Star Trek Discovery and 2 seasons of short tracks, almost every single one trying to reach a new low. You can't be a Star Trek fan and hate Star Trek canon. That's inconsistent. It is not possible. You want to be Star Trek fans. You people are on record saying you like Star Wars more and things like that. I'm sorry. You're, if at best, you're a casual weather Star Trek fan. That doesn't make you a Star Trek fan. You shouldn't be using the phrase Star Trek fan. Just because you liked Captain Kirk as a kid, or you had a crush on Spock, or whatever it is that made you a so-called Star Trek fan, if you don't care about the series, if you don't get physically ill when you see canon perverted, when you see of all of James T. Kirk and the original Enterprise's first being stripped away by Star Trek Discovery, that now Lorker had a Gorn skeleton before Kirk even knew what a Gorn was, that Lorker had a Tribble before anybody knew what a Tribble was, that there was an entire science vessel full of Tribbles, that Starfleet lost a ship to Tribbles, and Dr. McCoy had no idea what a Tribble was, and that Dr. McCoy didn't notice human DNA as part of the Tribbles, even though you're trying to tell us now that Tribbles were invented by a crazy idiot human named Edward, and Dr. McCoy, you're saying, was so incompetent as a doctor, he didn't scan the human DNA that was part of Tribbles. You are insulting us. You are hurting the franchise. You are hurting Star Trek. And no Star Trek fan can stand there with a straight face and tell me that I'm a Star Trek fan and I okayed the trouble with Edward and I greenlit Q&A and I'm totally happy with season 1 of Discovery because at the end of season 2, we just classify it all. That is total and crap and bullshit. And no Star Trek fan can look at a Kling-Orc with its 4 nostrils and its 2 dicks and tell me that's a Klingon. Fuck you! That's not a Klingon. So what's now? Oh, now they're saying that Shaban... That's not to say Shaban didn't try to get some uber nerdy Trek terminology in there. Oh, wow, uber nerdy Trek terminology. You mean Technobabble? Why didn't you just say Technobabble? Because you probably don't know what Technobabble is. You have no business writing this or talking about this if you're calling it uber nerdy Trek terminology. Oh boy, uber nerdy Trek technology, the dilithium crystals, oh. So I might try to slip in a little. Usually I was encouraged to take it back out because it's not meted very often, Shaban said. This series is very much character-based and character-driven. The technology that is represented in the show, we tried to make things as self-evident as we could, or as self-explanatory as we could. Like what? Self-sealing stem bolts? No, you didn't. There is a huge storehouse of Star Trek technology already established that we could draw on. that you should have drawn on. And I think in terms of actual technobabble, we didn't really do it that often, pretty light. So at least Shaban knows the term technobabble, which is more than I can say for the author. Goldsman called out one of Shaban's attempts. Someone says, engage the inertial dampeners somewhere. Shaban denied it. No, we didn't shoot that, he said. Thank God, Shaban. Now, I don't know if you didn't do it because you didn't like people were telling you not to put in technobabble, or you understood that that was the dumbest sentence ever uttered in Star Trek, because inertial dampeners are always engaged. They're always online, because if they weren't online, you would be dead, right? The human body can't take the inertial change of going from 0 to impulse power, let alone 0 to warp speed without inertial dampeners. Okay? They are only a problem when they're off. You don't engage them. They're always on. If they have power and the circuits are working, they're on. You could disengage them in an emergency, but you would never engage the inertial dampener somewhere. That is never a line that has ever been spoken in Star Trek before, and God help me, it should never be spoken in Star Trek ever. So if you stopped it, Shaban, on that respect because you realize that inertial dampeners should always be on, then hats off to you, and I'm sorry you've already had to leave the show. But if you just stopped it because we don't need more technobabble, then you just got lucky like a broken clock. I don't like it, people. I don't like it. This, combined with the Variety article that came out a few days ago, it's confirming not only our worst fears, but worse than I could have ever imagined Star Trek Picard would be. And I did not have high hopes after season 2 of Discovery and these vile short tracks that make a mockery of the franchise I loved. I will still hope Picard is good, but I no longer hope Picard is good like I bought a ticket and I hope I win the lottery. I now hope Picard is good like I've won the lottery without even buying a ticket, because that's what I think the chances are. That you've won the lottery without even buying a ticket, that I suppose the winning ticket, not only did you not buy it, but the wind blew it into your hand, and on the back of the ticket was a note from whoever bought it saying, whoever finds this ticket may keep it. So you can legally cash it in without any guilt that you didn't even buy the ticket. That's the chances that I now give Star Trek Picard of being good. And if it is, believe me, I will be the first one on YouTube saying, I was wrong. These people were idiots, but they made a good show. But you know I'm not going to do that because it's not going to happen. We'll see. Not happy. Qapla, take care. God help us all.